Okay, so hello, everyone. I'm Mary Horsey. I'm DER Integration Engineer with City of Fort Collins Municipal Utility. And I just want to say thanks to Jesse and Joseph because your presentations were excellent. And I'm going to be talking about really a specific example of managed charging and some things that you both have really touched on. So we are just standing up a 1-month demonstration pilot to test managed charging with 25 EVs. We're dipping our toes into the potential for using EV charging as a distributed energy resource that will support grid flexibility. That's kind of our perspective. And this is pretty typically Fort Collins' approach. We currently dispatch several distributed energy resources. We have 2 different kinds of thermostat programs, grid interactive water heaters, and batteries that we dispatch and charge and turn on and off. And this is a very small scale, but it helps us learn the ins and outs of how these systems function. So when the time is right to take them to scale, we feel like we'll be much better prepared. So EVs represent a spectacular and terrifying opportunity for utilities. Huge load and revenue growth go hand in hand with distribution system capacity constraints that can paralyze feeders, as we just talked about earlier. One way that we can address the constraints is to manage EV charging to minimize the strain on the distribution system and also maximize the grid's ability to integrate more and more renewables. Next slide, please. So EV charging has 2 aspects that we can manage: when a vehicle is charged and how long it is charged for. So those are our 2 sort of opportunities. And this gives us some control and flexibility. Like DR programs, we can shift when charging occurs to minimize the peak, or in our case, to save customers money by shifting charging to off-peak rates. So Fort Collins has time of use rates. They're not optional. Everybody is pretty much opted in unless you have a really, really good reason to opt out. So we charge 23 cents a kilowatt hour for on-peak and 7 cents a kilowatt hour for off-peak. So you can see that for our customers, it's really important to not be using any more electricity than they need to at off-peak time, at on-peak times. So we can delay the charging so there's more available. Well, okay, sorry. So that's like a DR program, right? We can shift when charging occurs and minimize the peak or save our customers energy from using their electricity in off-peak times. We can also delay charging so there's more available battery capacity to be charged at times when we choose. So like noontime and early in the morning, like 2 and 3 a.m., when there's excess solar and wind on the grid, so at those times, that renewable energy might be curtailed and would not be consumed. So if we delay charging during the day when there's more fossil fuel energy on the grid, then we can integrate more renewables onto the grid. We can also take advantage of these opportunities. In order to take advantage of these opportunities, we need to monitor in real time the battery's state of charge. Because while we might want to delay charging in the morning to take advantage of excess solar energy that's available around noontime, our customers might need to drive to Denver at lunch, and so they won't have enough charge to make it. And so that's why it's really important that we be able to monitor what the state of the battery's charge is at all times. Next slide, please. So this brings us to Rolling Energy Resources. It's a small company in Boulder that's developed a platform that communicates with the vehicle's battery management system, not with the charger. So when we want to delay charge time until solar noon, RER is actually communicating that delay over a cellular connection to the car's battery charging system. So we're not talking to the chargers, we're actually talking to the car's battery management system. So in this situation, we're now free of the constraint of being tethered to a specific charging station. So we can be plugged in at the mall in the morning and the vehicle's not charging because it has a user selected minimum threshold of charge, say 30%. Because, you know, we want people to be able to say, you guys can manage our battery, but we always want to have a minimum of 30% charge because we know that wherever we are in town, it'll get us back home. So in this situation, we're at the mall, it's plugged in, but it's not charging until 11:30 because then it'll start to charge and make use of all the renewable solar noon PV energy. So we can head home at 11 and plug in when we get there, and the battery will still wait to start charging until 11:30. Or we could decide to stay at the mall for lunch and the battery will start charging at 11:30. So where you're plugged in, where you're plugged in is not a problem for us controlling your battery. And so this ability to communicate with the vehicle's battery management system is for us a real game changer. And REI can currently communicate with EVs from 19 different manufacturers, and they're adding more as time goes on. So next slide. So in the next month, we are going to be furiously testing as many charging scenarios as we can think of on the 25 brave souls who agreed to let us experiment with charging their cars in exchange for a $100 incentive. So early adopters are our heroes, and we actually have a 12% waiting list, which is fine because once we complete this 1 month test, we'll do some analysis, and then we will move on to a program in the summer where we're going to manage 100 electric vehicles, and that'll just be an ongoing program. So this is like our test case to really work the bugs out. So we're going to offer our customers a suite of charging programs to choose from. Basic level is demand shifting for time of use. So this is going to save customers money because they're not going to be charging on peak times. And it also offers them a lot of convenience because if you think about it, you come home from work, you plug your car in so you don't forget, you go in the house, start dinner, and in many situations, you're going to be charging at 23 cents a kilowatt hour. So this system will delay that until on-peak rates are over, and then they're going to save money because they're only going to be charging their vehicles on off-peak times. We're especially interested in combinations of charging scenarios that are going to, we hope, let us eke out as much flexibility for the system as possible. Like maybe customers would be interested in combining, say, time of use rates with solar noon and nighttime wind. And we've worked out exactly, when the windows of opportunity to charge are, so people can actually look and say, okay, yeah, I can do that. I'll be able to charge, from this time to that time in the morning and this time to that time in the afternoon and whenever in the evening. And that fits with my, the way I live my life and use my car. So part of this 1 month testing is actually figuring out what our customers are going to choose. And then they can also make changes throughout the month. So if like this isn't working for them because they find out that in fact they do need to be able to charge at a certain time, then we can make those changes pretty easily. And so hopefully a lot of what will come will begin to really understand how our customers use, how they charge their vehicles. So next slide. That's all. I kept this pretty short. It's just a basic overview of how we're dipping our toes into managed charging. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.